When West Ridge High welcomed its newest faculty member, Ms. Seraphina Hale, no one expected her arrival to spark the most shocking story the school had witnessed in decades. She stepped onto campus with a quiet confidence, shoulders relaxed, gaze steady, dark hair pulled into an efficient knot that made her look less like a teacher and more like someone accustomed to analyzing a battlefield. But students, particularly the notorious group of seniors who proudly called themselves the Ridge Kings, sized her up instantly and decided she was an easy target. She looked calm, soft-spoken, and carried none of the bluster most teachers used to survive the toxically charged hallways. They had dominated the school for years, using intimidation, mockery, and cruelty as their chosen language. So when Ms. Hale assigned homework on the first day, shut down their inappropriate jokes, and confiscated a vape pen mid-lecture without even flinching, something inside their brittle egos snapped. To them, she was a threat, not because she was weak, but because she wasn't impressed by them. Rumors spread quickly among the students. Who was she? Why did she walk like someone who always knew who was behind her? Why did she flinch at loud noises in a way that seemed more calculated than fearful? But gossip didn't bother her. She kept her head down and focused on her lesson plans. What she didn't realize was that the Ridge Kings had already decided to make an example of her. Not with petty pranks, not with insults, but something far crueler. Their ringleader, Jackson Pierce, had a reputation for taking things too far, and when he declared that the new teacher needed to be put in her place, no one disagreed. They waited, watched, and plotted, unaware that they were picking a fight with someone whose past was carved from years of relentless combat training, classified missions, and survival against odds they could not begin to comprehend. And when the day of their attack finally arrived, they would learn, far too late, that Ms. Hale was not the fragile schoolteacher they assumed she was, but a former Special Forces operative whose entire life had been built around staying alive in situations far more dangerous than. It happened on a windy Thursday afternoon. The sky hung low and gray, the kind that makes teenagers restless and teachers exhausted. Ms. Hale had stayed late to prepare for the upcoming midterm, her classroom empty except for the soft tapping of her pen. Meanwhile, the Ridge Kings lurked in the hallway, whispering among themselves, adrenaline masking their doubt. They had watched her routine for days and discovered that she often walked across the roof access landing as a shortcut to the faculty parking lot. It was a strange habit, but she preferred the open air to the crowded stairwells. They decided that would be the perfect place. Their plan was simple: scare her, humiliate her, assert dominance. But Jackson pushed the plan further, insisting they shove her off the roof's edge onto the landing below, a drop high enough to injure, not kill. Or so they thought. When she opened the rooftop door, the boys sprang into action, surrounding her with mocking grins and forced laughter. She recognized the tactic instantly: encirclement, intimidation, classic dominance play. They were sloppy, telegraphing their moves long before execution, but she allowed herself to react as an ordinary teacher might, hands raised, voice firm but calm. "Step back," she ordered. They didn't listen. Jackson lunged first, grabbing her shoulder. Most people would have stumbled. Most people would have screamed. Ms. Hale merely pivoted, stepping out of his grip with the fluidity of someone who had disarmed grown men twice his size in less forgiving environments. The boys hesitated, just long enough for doubt to creep in. But pride is a dangerous motivator. They rushed her together. She backed up toward the ledge as they shoved, their force combining into a single reckless push. Her heel caught the edge. There was a moment of weightlessness, just a second, but enough for every boy to feel a cold dread wash over him. And then she vanished from their sight, falling backward off the. Silence swallowed everything. The boys froze, staring at the empty space where she'd been. Their breathing quickened, panic rising like floodwater. Someone muttered, "Oh my God, what did we do?" Another swore under his breath. Jackson tried to stay composed, but his hands trembled uncontrollably. They rushed to the ledge, expecting to see her broken on the concrete. Instead, they saw nothing: no body, no movement. Confusion twisted their expressions. Meanwhile, beneath the ledge, Ms. Hale crouched in a three-point landing position, absorbing the impact with practiced precision. Years of airborne training had drilled the maneuver into her muscles until it was instinctual. She rose silently, brushing dust from her slacks. Her pulse remained steady, her breathing calm. But the boys above were unraveling. When she stepped out into the open, emerging from beneath the landing's shadow, they gasped as if they had seen a ghost. Their shock was immediate and total. How How are you standing? One of them stammered. Ms. Hale looked up at them, expression unreadable, posture straight as a blade. You made a mistake, she said quietly. Her voice wasn't threatening. If anything, it was disappointed. That frightened them more. Jackson, desperate to reassert control, shouted down at her, "Stay away from us." His voice cracked in a way that betrayed his fear. Ms. Hale didn't respond. Instead, she climbed the metal ladder back to the rooftop with unhurried, deliberate movements. The boys stepped back instinctively, trapped between fight and flight. When she reached the top, she stood before them, not angry, not panicked, but studying them with the trained assessment of someone cataloging potential threats. And in that moment, they realized she wasn't just physically capable. She was dangerous in a way they had never encountered. Not because she wanted to hurt them, but because she could, and wouldn't need more than a breath of effort to do so. What you did, she began, could have killed me. Her tone was controlled, but beneath it simmered a steel forged from battlegrounds, not classrooms. And you don't understand how close you came to ruining your lives. The boys stood frozen, unable to meet her gaze. She stepped closer, and they instinctively backed away. It was an unconscious response, prey recognizing the apex predator it had foolishly provoked. She stopped a few feet away, close enough for them to feel the quiet intensity radiating from her. Tell me, she continued, is this how you solve your problems? Ambushing someone you don't like? None of them answered. She could see guilt creeping in, mixing with shame and fear. But she wasn't interested in terrorizing them, she had seen enough of that during her service. Memories flickered behind her eyes. Night raids, ambushes in desert terrain, losing teammates because someone underestimated a threat. She remembered how quickly lives could be destroyed by bad choices. And now, standing here, she recognized the same reckless ignorance in these boys, misguided youth mistaking cruelty for power. She took a slow breath, grounding herself. What you did today is something you can't take back, she said. But you're lucky, because you chose the wrong target. The boys flinched. She wasn't bragging. She wasn't threatening. She was stating a fact. I served in special forces for 12 years, she continued. Watching their expressions change, I've survived ambushes that make what you just tried look like a playground scuffle. I've been trained to handle far worse than a group of teenagers trying to act tough. Their bravado shattered instantly. The weight of her words settled on them like an avalanche. She wasn't pretending. She wasn't exaggerating. This was the truth, and her steadiness made it undeniable. But unlike the enemies I faced out there, she added, you still have a chance to grow into better men. If you choose to. The boys were speechless. Even Jackson, usually loud and defiant, seemed to shrink into himself. Ms. Hale studied them one by one, seeing fear, regret, uncertainty, signs of boys unaccustomed to consequences. She decided then that punishment wasn't enough. They needed something different. Direction, discipline, understanding of the harm they caused. You're going to tell the principal what you did, she said finally. All of you, together. That set off a wave of protests. We'll get expelled. Our parents will kill us. Please, she raised a hand. Silence returned instantly. You're not children, she said. Not anymore. Actions have consequences. Her voice softened. But I'll be there when you tell him. And I'll make sure you're given a chance to make this right. Their relief was visible, but so was their confusion. Why would she help them after what they'd done? The answer was simple. She had seen what happened to young people who walked down violent paths without intervention. She wasn't going to let that happen here if she could prevent it. She gestured toward the door. Come on. They followed without protest this time, subdued and silent. As they walked through the empty halls, the boys felt a strange mix of fear and respect. Ms. Hale didn't behave like someone they could bully, or someone who wanted revenge. She carried herself with purpose, discipline, and an integrity they weren't used to encountering. When they reached the principal's office, Jackson hesitated. She placed a hand lightly on his shoulder, not threatening, but supportive. You can face this, she said. All of you can. It's the first step toward being better than the choices you made today. Her words, calm and resolute, held a kind of authority that made them believe her. By the time the meeting ended, consequences had been handed out, suspensions, mandatory counseling, community service, but something far more important had happened. The boys had confessed fully, accepted responsibility, and for the first time in years, genuinely felt remorse. Ms. Hale stayed with them throughout, answering the principal's questions honestly but refusing to let the situation escalate into a life-ruining spectacle. She explained the attack without embellishment and emphasized her belief that the boys could still change. The principal trusted her judgment. Over the following weeks, something unexpected happened. The Ridge Kings, once the most feared group in school, began to shift. They apologized to students they had hurt. They participated in service projects without complaint. They even started showing up to Ms. Hale's class early, not out of fear, but respect. Ms. Hale didn't expect gratitude, nor did she seek admiration. She simply taught, guided, and remained consistent. She understood better than anyone that real strength wasn't about domination or violence, it was about restraint, discipline, and knowing when to extend a hand instead of delivering a blow. Months later, on a warm spring afternoon, Jackson approached her after class. "Ms. Hale," he said quietly, "thank you for not giving up on us. We didn't deserve it." She met his gaze, seeing not the cocky bully who once shoved her toward a rooftop ledge, but a young man learning to rebuild himself. "Everyone deserves a chance to change," she replied. "Even you." And as he walked away, shoulders no longer heavy with arrogance but shaped by humility, Ms. Hale allowed herself a small, rare smile. She had survived war zones, covert missions, and battles no one in this school would ever understand. But guiding these boys away from the edge, the same edge they had once forced her over, felt like one of her most meaningful victories.